people of brilliant minds and just caring minds, people who care about people, people who don't like watching people suffer, people who have a value of what's fair and what's not fair. If you look back at the time of slavery, at the time of lynching in the South of black people, of the time of prejudice, of the Ku Klux Klan, of white nationalists. You don't have to look back that far. We have white nationalists all around the world, people who are prejudiced, people who think that black people are inferior, or Jews are inferior, or anybody is inferior. And we have people of every race, of every origin, who believe something like that, that other people are inferior to them or nasty because this is the way they are born. I don't believe that. I believe that everybody, every baby who is born, you can say perfect. And perfect in that sense means ready to start a life in this world of goodness. And all of a sudden bad things happen to babies and to little children, and they start to learn, and this is the key word, learn. This is where education comes in. Learn to be prejudiced and to be racist and to start to hate people because they are taught to hate people. And we have a president of the United States. I'm going to just come right out and say it right now. I don't like this man. Some of you may be shocked that I said this. And if you are, I'm not saying this to upset you. I'm saying this because we should have discussion, that we should be able to speak about things and not be afraid to search out the truth. When Mr. Floyd was murdered, and it was a murder because there's no reason why the policeman had to keep his knee on his neck for over 7 minutes, and he was screaming, "I can't breathe, I can't breathe." And when he arrived at the hospital, he was pronounced dead. He was murdered because he was black. He wasn't white. People murdered people in the South, and they would have done it. Maybe they did it in some parts of the North that we're not even aware of, in some rural areas in the North, because they were black. All over this country, there have been such problems with the black community because black people have been forced to live in their areas. White people did not want them in their areas. They didn't want integration. We had a big, long fight to finally get the schools integrated. White people got in the front of the bus. Black people had to go in the back. White people could sit anywhere in any restaurant. Black people could not sit in a lot of restaurants, and they had to use separate bathrooms. I mean, this is a horror. This is something which you would say, wow, well, that's in the past. It's not that way now. But it is that way now. And this is what this discussion should be about. I don't want to talk too long. I mean, I could talk, and I have to control myself, because I can talk for maybe a half hour more on this, and I know there's a certain sense in my brain that says, Bernie, give other people a chance. Don't keep going on and on and on. But I just have to quickly try to tie up the points that I'm making. Without a leader, I mentioned President Trump, without a leader to educate people, without a leader who people follow, without a leader who will not wear this man will not wear a mask, and people joking around, I don't have to wear a mask. If the president doesn't, why should I? You know, people want to respect a leader. And another thing that we should talk about is, do we respect people? Do we have a lack of respect? Why is it that people don't respect President Trump? Why is it that some people do respect him? Or do they really respect him? Or are they afraid to admit things in their mind which they will not face? Their own problems, their own hatred, their own jealousy, the jealousy of people, blue-collar workers to white-collar workers, the jealousy of people who hate people who make money. There's so much jealousy and hate and disrespect and greed. We haven't spoken about greed. Let's all talk about greed. We used to think that the United States should have the best school system in the world, us people from the USA, because it would give people an opportunity to learn wonderful things and to be equal. And what's happened? The public school system has been eroded into privatized school systems, religious school systems, private charter school systems, private online. You see it advertised all over. You don't have to go to school. We'll take care of it for you. All you got to do is pay us. Just like so many other things have been privatized, like the United States Post Office or the United States Mint, where they make the coins. Do you know that the coins in the United States are not made by the US government? Because people are making gigantic profits. And the United States presidency, in my mind and in Mindy's mind, is to keep the profit up of the people who all work together to be in a very, very different class. Do they care about education? No. Does education have anything to do with racism and prejudice? Absolutely. And it should start at the top. So what was the expression President Trump said about
something regarding the looters and the shooters?
Oh, right. If you're going to be a looter, something like that, then you're going to be a shooter. You're going to be, in other words, if you loot, you're going to get shot. Mm-hmm. It's very easy for people to see the buildings burning down and the precinct burning down and to say to themselves, look at all these people, look at all these black people. All they want to do is loot. They don't care. They speak about, they want their freedom, but they have no respect. It's very important for all of us to realize that these protests did not start with the people who were looting and setting fires to buildings and cars and possibly and probably hurting people. There are different factions, and we cannot lump everybody into the same faction, into the same, like the same person. That's another form of prejudice. So most people don't even hear the word prejudice anymore. We hear racism. But if we don't talk about prejudice, we can't talk about racism. So.
There were a few comments in chat that I would like to address. And remember, guys, if you don't want me to state your name, I won't do it right now. But if you don't want me to state your name, just send me a whisper or write it in chat. And one person writes the following: I don't think we've changed or become anything. Racism has been there for thousands of years. We just have a much easier access to seeing it nowadays. It makes me very sad. My response to that is you're absolutely right. It has been around since the beginning of time. And yes, we, in the year 2020, we're experiencing the same thing. And we say that not necessarily with just, okay, it happened then and it continues to happen now and it'll happen tomorrow and in the future. So be it. I think that's the crucial words. Those are the crucial words. So be it. How is it going to end? How, and it's not going to end miraculously or overnight or instantaneously or any of those adjectives. But how is it going to happen? And as Bernie and I often discuss, it stems, everything for the most part, stems from a level of hierarchy. And when I use the word hierarchy, I'm not just referring to, a person's status from a political standpoint or an educational standpoint, but even as our last podcast was discussing, it all begins, many of which begins with our parents. During childhood, children just normally don't grow up independently with ideas of such unless it was picked up somewhere along the line, whether it be at home with mom and dad, or mom and mom, or dad and dad, or whoever the caregivers are, or whether it was picked up in school, or whether it was picked up with their friends, or whether it was picked up on the streets, or wherever the initiation began. So, where's the intermediary here? This person heard this from so-and-so, and then what's that person going to do with it? Where does that breaking point begin? Where does the questioning begin? Where does the person say, hey, you know what? This is really not so chill here right now. This is not a dank conversation. Whatever words, whatever memes are apropos at the time, however you wish to call it, that's not right. Maybe if enough people years ago continued to do that, and maybe if our governmental leaders set forth an example to everyone in their country or state, we wouldn't have had what just took place last night. Think about that. What do you think, Bernie?
I agree with you on that. People just are afraid to talk. People will not communicate because of being afraid that they may offend somebody, or maybe they would offend a sponsor. Or Mindy and I have spoken that how controversial can we be? This is a controversial subject because I'm sure there are people, some of you may be saying, wow, look at these libtards, look at these liberal people, starting to call people names. When I was young, nobody would ever say the word libtard, or anybody who thinks about anything is a socialist. That's just as bad as being a communist or an atheist. All these horrible things. Ooh, the devil's gonna get you. You're gonna burn in hell. Mindy and I don't believe in that, but some people do. And this is unfortunately bad teaching, because certain teaching makes people racist and have terrible feelings about other people. I was a school teacher for many years. At the same time, I was a musician. Wore a lot of different hats, and I loved teaching. And I was always interested and caring about the children that I was with. I was a music teacher, and I went from one class to the next. And sometimes, I remember, there was one situation where I said to the children in one class, I'm Jewish. And the kids looked at me, oh, you're Jewish? No. I said, yeah, why? Well, where's your beanie? I said, well, you're talking about a head covering. It's called a yarmulke or a kippah. I said, well, not all Jews wear these head coverings or these kippahs, but that doesn't mean that we're not Jewish. There's all different types of people. And as I'm looking at the chat, I saw somebody said something about, well, black people get their release through music. And this is true for some black people, but there are so many different types of people who have different ideas and have different educations. And there are black people right here in this neighborhood, and if you would say to them, what do you think of the people who live up on the north side? That's where the people are a lot poorer. It's more like a ghetto. And we would never go there. Stay away from them. People are separated. It's not just race. It's culture. It's an economic culture. It's an economic pitfall. It's I hate to say it, it's disgusting the way we allow people to live in poverty, where people are only dependent upon food stamps, and when people are dependent upon selling drugs to make a living. And this is the truth. I always said that it's the inventors of the world, the great geniuses, the great musicians, the composers, the artists, and the inventors, and the philosophers who have changed society. And there's a need for a new philosophy, and I'm going to tell you what I believe. My philosophy is that what we need doesn't exist yet, and it should. And what should exist is made at this time easier for us to understand. We have COVID-19, and people are out of work, and somehow or other, the governments have found money to help people out. But what about the sickness of poverty? Do we help people out of poverty? No, we don't. We let the same thing happen over and over again. When I was a teacher, I saw kids who would say, hey man, I want to get high. And I am these were mostly children who came from the poor neighborhoods where I taught. I did not teach in rich neighborhoods, except later on, after I retired from the New York City Board of Education. I taught in a private school. And I said, something is wrong. Why can't government, and this is a podcast with a purpose. If there's no purpose to anything, why even talk about it? If the purpose should be to make things better, to teach people, to make people get off their asses and say, oh my, he's right. We can't just sit by and let things happen over and over again. People running in circles like that Mad World song never changes. If we don't make a change, then Michael Jackson said the same thing, make a change. You got to make a change. But nothing ever happens. We talk and we talk and we talk and we hear ourselves talk, and sometimes we feel, oh, we were so smart. We said the right thing. But where was the action? The action has to be with the government, because what is the purpose of government? Government should be for all the people, to make people live in comfort. And I'm not saying people should all be rich, and I'm not saying that the people who are rich should give up their lifestyle, but there is enough riches in this country that we can stop the poverty, and we can have good schools, and we can have children having fun, and children can get high without taking drugs into their bodies. And we should actually not be afraid of saying, you know, the word high, that's a good word. Feel good. Feel good. You know? People are not used to people feeling good unless, hey, what are you taking, man? What are you smoking? What have you been sticking up your nose?
We have a comment in chat that I'd like to read now.
Sure.
Thank you for addressing these issues. I'm a white male who was born and lives in Sweden, which is largely pretty tolerant and progressive when it comes to origin ethnicity. But racism is still notable in various parts of our noticeable in our various parts of society. All I have to go by is news reporting and individual testimonies from people in the US, but the cause of racism and prejudices are the same to me: lack of education, tribalism, and looking for outsiders to blame your problems on. And again, we're going to touch upon two things, one of which we haven't even mentioned so far. When we discuss racism or we discuss prejudice, we tend to think religion, ethnicity, color,
Be right back.
things along that line. But there are so many other entities as well, why people are against someone else. For instance, sexuality. Years ago, you know, heaven forbid anyone would ever admit to, may I have a bottle of water, please?
Sure.
Ever admit to being homosexual or being transgender. And thank goodness, in today's day and age, we have overcome a tremendous amount, but we still have, with so many people, those prejudices as well. And it is really, the word displacement that the person in chat just wrote, you know, blaming. Blaming is a very easy scapegoat.
Okay.
Blaming is a way to prevent oneself from accepting any level of responsibility. So I went into the kitchen, I'm giving you an example. I went into the kitchen and, you know, I saw there was a little spill on the floor and I was kind of lazy and I didn't want to pick it up. Oh, who spilled it? And I fell. Who am I going to blame? Well, I'm not going to blame myself for not cleaning it up. I'm going to go blame the person that I think may have made the spill, didn't notice it, and didn't clean it up because they didn't even know it was there. So if we're going to talk about fault, how is that going to help a situation? If we see something is incorrect or unethical or immoral or just plain downright wrong, instead of finding the blame, let's not, if we're all going to assume someone else is accountable, again, we're going to continue the same course of events. Today, tomorrow, the next day, the next month, the next year, the next decade, the next century, and the next millennium. So we keep reiterating that where and when and how is it going to stop?
I want to talk about. Can I talk about something
Sure.
a little bit different? But I just want to say something, Phil. This is really interesting, Phil MM. You say Jews kill poor Palestinians. What about that? I do want to talk about prejudice against Palestinians and against Jews as well. When Jews kill Palestinians, I really must say, I believe, and you can argue this with me, I believe they are defending themselves. It's called self-defense. When the Six-Day War occurred, every single Arab country decided that they were going to get rid of the country of Israel. They were going to wipe it off the map. As a matter of fact, every year when the people of Israel celebrate their anniversary, the Arab countries call it, I forgot what they call it. There's a name, but it was called like their Holocaust. They never recognized Israel, and they were terrorists against the Jews in Israel. But yet, people are prejudiced against the Jews, and they believe that it's the Jews who kill, and the Palestinians are correct. As a matter of fact, there's a man named Roger Waters who was part of Pink Floyd, and he is the biggest artistic supporter of boycotting and divesting and sanctioning the country of Israel. I don't like Roger Waters. I don't like people who do not face history the way it should be faced, who really look at the truth. Israel tried to give more land back to the Palestinians years ago, and every single time they did, it was rejected because it was against their feelings, their religious feelings, that this was not this was not supposed to be any land of the Jews. They denied that where the Temple Mount is, there was the second temple that the Jews put up. The Jews are a tiny minority in this world, and yet people have always wanted to have them killed. Hitler, Egypt, Iran, every Arab country, not everybody in the country, but the religious laws always spoke about the Jews as being like mice and vermin and rats and horrible people. Or Christians always hated the Jews. The Jews killed Christ. Jews didn't kill Christ. Killed Christ. I didn't have anything to do with the death of Jesus. But people believe these things because they're taught these things. And there we go. You believe what you're taught. We can speak for hours. I wouldn't want to speak for hours. We don't have the time about that. So when I see when I see you write that, Phil, I'm saying to myself, you have been, forgive the expression, brainwashed, and there's another expression which we should be using during this conversation, the brainwashing of people believing that you love a president of the United States who has no qualifications at all to do the job of a statesman. Would you want somebody to do heart surgery on you who is not a doctor, who doesn't have the prerequisites of science?
There's a comment in chat that states some people are nasty in life, and no one is born nasty.
I agree
Okay.
with that. I hope you all agree.
Whether it be a person or whether it be an animal, okay? People are not brought into this world to harm and to cause hurt and to cause destruction and pain. People are not born that way. Circumstances that the person encounters, experiences that the person endures, causes personality traits as such. If a baby is not treated well, if a baby's needs are not met, from infancy onward, they are going to develop a sense of lack of trust, lack of security, lack of self-confidence. If a child is abused, if a child is meant to feel as though they're not good or they don't have anything of positive nature to offer, they're going to have a very low self-esteem and have a very difficult time developing relationships and holding jobs. And behaviors later in life may occur, negative behaviors, just for the means of survival. People aren't born this way. Circumstance is the etiology behind it. So that's why it's so pertinent that people your ages, we've got age groups here from 15 on up, okay? At least 15 is the youngest I'm aware of. It's your generation who really needs to help provide and promote and protect our world moving forward. In being here and in other entities where you're listening with unbiased ears, you're present and you're involving yourself in a conversation that to many may be quite uncomfortable and quite disconcerting. You're listening. Listening is the first step. You listen, you digest, you think about it, and then you act upon it. That's how this world will develop a positive change. It's always up to the people prior to us, people moving forward to set the example. When people my age, people Bernie's age, are no longer on the face of this earth, it's going to be our children's generation, you guys' your generation, to make something like what just happened this past week in Minneapolis never happen again. The change must come.
And the change must come from the President of the United States. The man should be respected, and he is not respected because he doesn't command respect. A person who, I mean, when he won the election, Mindy and I and all of us said, holy, what the? Now, this is a podcast, so I'm watching my language. This is also going to be, I should say, part of the podcast. But you can imagine how we could not believe it. And yet, the truth of the matter is, maybe it's a good thing that Donald Trump is president. Because, first of all, he is. There's nothing we can do about it. We can't change the past. But now, it gives us an opportunity to think about people's minds. All the people who love him and would take their AK-47s at rallies and say, you're going to open up our economy, and they have these, not just guns, they have this ammunition, these horrible things that can kill lots of people. And we've had instances in the United States since Trump's presidency of people dying in mass murders. And who's to say it's not going to happen again? Every time it happens, people start screaming, oh, we got to do something about it. This girl, Greta, I forgot her last name, I think she was from Sweden, tell me if I'm right, was an activist, and people made fun of her because the National Rifle Association is promoting
Greta Thunberg.
Thunberg, thank you, is promoting the manufacturing of weapons. It makes money. We care about, not we, some people care about money over lives. Hydrochloroquine. Let's make money on hydrochloroquine. Let's buy that stock. Give me a break. How naive can you be? People bury their heads under the sand because they don't want to admit the truth. They are afraid of going against their team. That's what happened to our United States Senate. It's a Republican United States Senate. And everybody seems to be afraid to break with the dictator Trump.
Team Western wants me to read this. Piano and Pro Man, I agree with what you are saying. I understand what you are saying. You're allowed to say my name. Thank you for that, team. I'm very happy also to say that, you know, the people that we have here this morning are a good handful are our regulars. We do have a number of people here.
Sorry about that.
That are not our regulars, and it is, hiya Coke, very nice to see the unbiased comments that are written in the chat, and that we really, hiya Pokey, we have people that I haven't really yet seen anyone. And as Bernie and I I had initiated this with him this morning, said, you know, in doing a stream like this, we need to be cautious because we don't know who may say what and what our reaction to that person will be. And I'm very, very proud to say that, you know, we've been very fortunate so far to have a really great group of viewers with us on Twitch this morning discussing this in a very, very sophisticated, serious, intelligent manner. And really want to thank all of you for the very prominent comments that have been made so far in the chat.
I thank you as well. Getting back to this idea that I have of changing society and why COVID-19 is at our doorstep, or in our house, at our doorstep, in our house, part of our lives at this time, is very relevant, because it makes us realize that when we need to, we can find the money to take care of society. Yet there's still not enough money, but we are saving companies, and we could be doing the same thing for the health of all of our citizens and the citizens of the world. Donald Trump wanted to stop giving funds to the World Health Organization. It makes him look bad, what they're saying. Maybe he won't win the next presidency. Well, that's just too bad. Is your selfish need to win the presidency more important than destroying or not supporting an organization that's worldwide, that has top scientists, that has brilliant people, that has doctors? We need to find the money, and we must stand up to find money to create an organization where the government should have the top scientific factory, so to speak, or organization where we can all pool our resources, because COVID-19 is not going to be the last coronavirus. What would happen if another virus like COVID-19 all of a sudden comes out?
Or the same one repeating itself because decisions were made that caused a resurgence.
Or a virus, exactly, or a virus like the HIV virus. Who's to say another virus like that would come out, and instead of it being sexually transmitted, it could be transmitted through the air, or through touch, or through food. This is molecules. This is science. We have to be ahead. We have to be smart enough to save the planet that way. And we have to be prepared for it. So things like this will never take a toll like it's taking now. Almost 102,000 people dead in the United States, let alone the rest of the world.
Almost 5 million.
This could happen. Who's to say it won't? This could happen in a month. This could happen next week. Maybe some kind of crazy insect will develop, or a fungus will come out, or who knows? Anything can happen. And if we don't get our scientific resources together, we are stupid. Period. The end.
I want to read another comment. With all due disrespect, I don't have pity for left wings or right wings. I feel like people are going against their own words just to gain power over other people, such as President Trump. My country is still being run by a queen. Politics these days is not adult, people sitting down discussing subjects. No, take Brexit. It's literally grown people shouting at each other. It was like a kindergarten going wild. Our society is slowly failing. Slowly falling apart. It's sad to see. The other day we didn't read,
I want to comment on that also.
We watched another news broadcast. I think over the past, 4 or 5 months, Bernie and I have been pretty much just addicted and stuck to CNN for the past number of months. And just the other day, there was name calling again occurring from the highest official in the country, name calling to his opponent.
Mm-hmm.
So now we have a leader of a country who's calling names to other people, who throws paper towels
at Puerto Ricans,
at Puerto Rican individuals, and who was unwilling to set an example for how our country should be listening to the scientists and the doctors, the medical staff, on how to prevent the spread of one of the deadliest diseases we've had in years.
And he makes fun of disabled
And-
people.
Right. And this is who I don't blame, and again, don't like to use the word blame, but it's not because it's not Trump's fault. If you want to look for the word fault here, I believe the people responsible for what's happening in this world right now, what's happening in our country rather right now, are those that voted for him. This is why we're where we are right now. No other reason than that. And all we can do is hope that moving forward in November, we won't have a repeat of the same course of events.
Wow.
Could not fathom such a catastrophe.
There's a subject we have not mentioned, and it is a very tricky subject to talk about because I may be offending some of you, and if I am, I am. And that has to do with abortion. There is in the United States, in the southern states, where we have what we call conservative Christians, not just conservative Christians, but ultra conservative Christians. These people, they're lovely people, but their views are, you can't get through to them. And their views on abortion say that we are killing babies. So why are we talking so much about the coronavirus? Only 100,000 dead. We've killed more than 1 million babies. And the conservative right, the people who Trump depends upon to get the votes, and he's getting the votes from them because of fear tactics, will tell you, I can't vote for anybody but Trump. He's the only one who's going to save the babies. If you think I'm joking or being silly about this or making this up, I just want to say something that I posted in Facebook, and some people really got upset about it. Some people liked it, some people didn't. Is that we know one of our friends is Peruvian. I mean, she's American, and she's married to an American man, but her family comes from Peru. She's a very religious, she says she's not Catholic now, she's evangelical. But when I said to her a few years ago, you must really think Trump is out of his mind. This was after he threw paper towels at the people in Puerto Rico when they had the flood, when they had the hurricane. And when he was telling, the Mexicans, they bring drugs and they rape and they do this and the Latin Americans, they're lowlifes. And I could not believe that anybody from Latin America could say, I said, he's finished, he messed up, he's out, nobody's, and she says, oh no, because he's saving the babies. This is a discussion. I mean, these are the things that we have to seek, the truth. Babies are not being killed legally. Zygotes are being killed. Some people say that if you spill your sperm, you are taking away the sanctity of life. That's an extreme. But people believe these things. You want to talk about this?
Well, I just want to read this one comment. Of course, abortion is okay. It's absolute dumb banning. If a girl gets raped, and needs an abortion, she did not ask nor give consent. It's actually dumb. People are pointing fingers at each other. You're not killing babies by getting an abortion, and the world is also overpopulated. This is just my view. I think that, I don't want us to get on a roll of a variety of different topics today because our main topic is racism and prejudice, although all of these other entities definitely
Intertwine with each other.
intertwine, yes, with each other. But just on the note of abortion, for both Bernie and I, we feel very, very strongly that a woman has a right to make a choice. And whatever that choice may be, that should be her choice. It should not be the government preventing her from being able to make the choice she wants, whether she got raped, whether she's pregnant with an ill zygote or fetus, whether she's in jeopardy of her own health, whatever the rationales are. It's the woman's body. No one should have the right, and this goes back to our original conversation this morning with George Floyd. No one has the right to take away someone else's constitutional right. No one has the right to take away someone else's freedom of choice whatsoever. And what's happening is that it seems more and more, instead of going in the right direction, we seem to be pulling back tenfold. And instead of moving forward with a more positive outlook, we're moving backwards. So we keep talking about the same things repetitively. Many of you, majority of you, have agreed with everything we've said so far on this stream. We only hope that this stream will entice other people, will entice other streamers, whether it be on Twitch, YouTube, Facebook, Mixer, any of those other sites, to begin this kind of a process where people are talking about conversations, topics, like what we're doing today. And maybe if enough people do that, and the word really does start getting out that it's coming from a younger generation as well, an improvement or a change might be listened to. I feel that it's time for a song, Bernie.
I do also. What about Mad World?
What about it?
I'm in the mood for Mad World, and I'm going to just get my lyrics. I should have
Would you
these.
like me to play it or no?
No, thank you. I picked the song Mad World because people run in circles and nothing ever changes. And to me, this is pertinent to this whole topic. We need action. We can always talk about we should have done this and we should have done that, but we picked the name of our podcast, a podcast with a purpose, because what is the purpose of anything but to make, it should be to make all of us feel better and better our lives, the word better. And that is so, so important. Thank you for following. And it's also interesting that it's the artists who are, by the way, somebody's mentioned about the left and the right. I don't consider myself left. And I don't think Mindy does either. We consider ourselves practical and honest. People give names to things, the left, the right, the center. We're all people who have different ideas, and some of us, I believe the people on both the right, the extreme right, are more prejudiced. I have to admit that. But yet, people who you may think are on the far left, they're also prejudiced. Some people on the far left think that anybody who has gotten to the point where they have made a fortune of money and they're enjoying their money should give up all that kind of money. That's not fair either. You know, we have people of different lifestyles, and we have the word jealousy that we haven't even discussed yet. There's so much to talk about. We can do 150,000 podcasts, maybe not that many, with all sorts of topics. But the most important thing is for us to be honest. Honesty is the most important. And people who say fake news, like Donald Trump says CNN is fake news, or the New York Times is fake news, I just want to say to you, don't be an idiot. All around me are familiar faces, worn out places, worn out faces, bright and early for their daily races, going nowhere, going nowhere. Their tears are filling up their glasses, no expression, no expression. Hide my head, I wanna drown my sorrow. No tomorrow, no tomorrow. And I find it kind of funny, I find it kind of sad. The dreams in which I'm dying are the best I've ever had. I find it hard to tell ya, I find it hard to take. When people run in circles, it's a very, very mad world. Mad world. Children waiting for the day they feel good. Happy birthday, happy birthday. Made to feel the way that every child should. Sit and listen, sit and listen. When I went to school, I was so very nervous. No one knew me, no one knew me. Hello, teacher, tell me what's my lesson. And she looked right through me, looked right through me. And I find it kind of funny, I find it kind of sad. The dreams in which I'm dying are the best I've ever had. I find it hard to tell ya, I find it hard to take. When people run in circles, nothing ever changes. Year after year, 4 years after 4, decade after decade. It's a very, very mad world. Mad world. Mad world. kinda funny. I find it kinda sad. The dreams in which I'm dying are the best I've ever had. When people run in circles, it's a very, very mad world. Mad world. Mad world. It is a mad world. It's a mad world, but we have to make the world change. We cannot have people run around in circles and not listening to each other. We cannot have that.
Because that's what's happening right now.
It's always happened. We need the new paradigm. We need to change the world with this new invention. We need people to say, let's create a government that will work to change people. And maybe this COVID-19 time is just the right time where we have proven that we can make changes because our existence depends upon it. Now it's got to be our existence for people not to have such horrible prejudices and terrible things happen to them. Here's Mindy. You want more music?
Sure. What would you like to play?
Blown in the Wind.
Okay.
Here's another song that was created by Mindy. Is Spencer okay?
You all right, Spencer? Yeah, why?
He was shaking before. I hope he's okay.
Is it cold?
I don't think so.
You okay, sweetie? Yeah, he's fine.
There was a time where we had a lot of songs written by composers and singers who were seeing a change taking place in the world. There's always a need for change, but you know, the problem is it happens too slowly. And that's really truthful. We need to speed things up. We just can't wait and wait and wait and wait because too many people die, too many people are in pain, too many people suffer when we wait so long. We do things too slowly, so we need the invention of creating a government that will take care of its people. And if we can get the truth told and stop this bipartisan stuff between the Republicans and the Democrats in the United States and get together, things could get accomplished. A lot of people blamed Obama, and there was a tremendous prejudice against him. First of all, because he was a dark-skinned man. I always said if Obama's mother wasn't white, he would have never been president. Probably not. I don't know if the country would have been ready for it at the time. You know, people don't want to admit their own flaws and their own prejudices. How many roads must a man walk down before you call him a man? Yes, and how many seas must a white dove sail before she sleeps in the sand. Yes, and how many times must the cannonballs fly before they're forever banned? The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind. How many years must a mountain exist before it's washed to the sea? Yes, and how many years must some people exist before they're allowed to be free? Yes, and how many times can a man turn his head and pretend that he just doesn't see? The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind. Times can a man look up before he sees the sky? Yes, and how many years must one person have before he can hear people cry? And how many deaths will it take till he knows that too many people have died? The answer, my friends, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind. Oh, the answer, my friends, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind.
And what we all need to do is to take our hands out, reach for that wind, reach for that sky, and
That's
grab all the right answers and put them to use. Bernie and I need to take a 1-minute break, guys. We'll be right back.
Thank you.
Alrighty, guys. While Bernie just takes a moment, if anybody has any questions or anything you'd like to talk about regarding this topic or any topic, please feel free to write it in chat. Interesting. We've got a comment that states, I think we have a huge problem with idolizing celebrities and people who generally are far richer than all of us. I think people want to be successful as them, and their views can affect ours without our own research. Yeah, he's fine, G. Thank you. That's very, very true. That's an old time, scenario where people always would like to live in the limelight of someone else's lifestyle or dreams or glamour. But we can all fantasize about those types of things. But if those things are not good for us, if they're not positive, if they're not providing what's beneficial, then it's surely not at all worth it. We all assume that people that live in the life of luxury, people that have an endless amount of money, and they show what they show on TV, or they show what they show in the newspapers. You see what you see is so many people post on Facebook, everything is beautiful, and going on this vacation and going and doing this and doing that. Nobody knows the true stories behind another person's life, right? Nobody knows. Only the people that live it know the truth. And it's really, I don't think, you can have goals and aspirations, of course, everyone should. And it should be in the best interest of you and your family and your loved ones. But to just idolize someone because they, quote unquote, hold a particular stature, nah.
You know what? Who said that? Berserker?
Uh-huh.
Berserker, you said something really important to me. Because Donald Trump made his fame, his PR fame, if he wasn't the host on a TV program called The Apprentice. By the way, I never watched it. Would you believe I never watched it? Because I looked at it and I said, oh, give me a break. People are ass-kissing the rich and famous. Around that same time, there were programs. There was a man with a British accent, because in the United States, we love to hear people who have a British accent. It's very, very posh, It's very important. It's like, oh man, it's got, if it's from Europe, it's got to be important, cultured. Even today, in the commercials, we have somebody who speaks, oh, you say, oh yes, we'll buy it, right. Schweppes, the most wonderful thing. Anyway, Donald Trump, The Apprentice, and the man who I'm talking about, I don't remember his name, but he was saying, and now we're going to watch the life of the rich and famous. And people made money, people made fortunes, because this generated a gigantic audience. And Donald Trump got his audience from making all these wonderful deals and telling people, you're fired, you're fired, you're fired. I'm the man, I know how to make the deals. Oh, he made a great deal with people who got ripped off, spending millions of dollars on something called Trump University. Man should be in jail for that. That's where he should be. That's a lie. That place never worked. That place never really existed. They stole money from people and they used his name, Trump University. So, Berserker, you're right. People idolize. People are looking for the golden calf as their god. They will worship, they will bow down to the golden calf. Why? Why are people this way? If we can understand together, all of you and Mindy and me, to understand the roots of behavior of human beings, loving people who are so wealthy, and we will kiss their behinds for the money. Oh, they made all this money. They made all this money. Look at this yacht. Look at that yacht. This is what's important to people. Maybe because people have a need to live in fantasy, because people, they're really not happy with the way their lifestyle is. So if they can fantasize that they're in this lifestyle that they see on the tube, on the telly, on the screen, it's really weird, right? Look what's become of us.
So as we've said, we've been having this discussion now for about an hour and 40 minutes. And I think that we all agree as to what the bottom line should be. The bottom line should be a change is for sure needed. A change is a necessity. The world is constantly changing, but we need to move in a more positive direction. People that are in control, people that make decisions, people that have the ability to alter how another person moves forward in their life, whether it be from early stages on, teachers, government, parents, caregivers, the whole 9 yards. If everyone was doing things for the right reasons, doing things not just for themselves, but for others, if mankind was simply, and it reminds me of a bumper sticker that Bernie saw a couple of weeks ago.
It was amazing.
What was it? Be kind to America again?
Make America kind again.
Make America kind again. That says it all. And when we say make America kind, we'll take the word America out. Make the world kind. Because who doesn't really, in the deep, deep wrenches of their heart, want to live in a kind world? Most people do want kindness, and sometimes if they just can't have it or they can't find it, you have episodes take place as what did yesterday in Minneapolis. These officers were, I don't even know what adjective, inhumane.
Robots?
Inhumane.
Inhumane robots.
To do what was done to this man, George Floyd, regardless of what it was that brought him to their attention. It just doesn't matter.
And
society, human beings shouldn't do that to someone else. And if he wasn't a man of color, would this have happened?
And what's happened to George Floyd, this was publicized. How do we know how many things like what happened to George Floyd happens every single day in black communities, or as they say, in black and brown communities now? How many people still hate Colin, what's his name? I went blank. Colin Kaepernick, because of an incident that happened prior to him taking a knee because he was quietly protesting instead of standing up during the Star-Spangled Banner, the American patriotic theme song. He said, I want to protest. I want people to know that I'm a black man and I'm going to take a knee. I'm going to not stand up. And President Trump made fun of him, and so many people on social media said, what a disgusting person for his expressing his First Amendment rights. Speaking about that, I am very, very grateful. And since I was a little boy, I've been grateful, saying, boy, we live in the United States of America. the country where we broke away from Europe, we broke away from England, or the kings and the queens and all the lords and ladies of Europe who owned everything, and we went to this new land for freedom of religion, for freedom of what we want to do. Sure, there was a lot of imperfect things. Sure, they had slavery. That was the bummer. That was the bummer. And along with, I'm sure, other things. You know, nothing is perfect. Things take time. All I can say is that we need to speed up the time, because you can't run around in circles, because that circle will be your lifetime. We don't want to wait another year. Let's not wait another year, everybody. Let's make this a radical change time. That's not left and that's not right. It's got to be radical, but radical in the good sense, making a reaction.
We have 2 comments in chat. One is, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. No explanation needed there. And another that says, you know what stereotype I was thinking about today? Male NFL cheerleaders. It seems unfair some sports leagues ban them outright.
That's right. It is unfair. And Colin Kaepernick went down on one knee and to protest, and this officer, or whatever he is, this policeman, went down on a knee and killed a black man. But every single day in minority, quote, I don't want to say minority, in areas where there are black people, the people will smile at you. Oh, I have so many black friends. I love my black friends. I love them. They're black. They're my friends. And they, deep down inside, they don't want to admit that, hey, you know what? Your parents were very, very prejudiced. Your grandparents, some of them would have been part of that lynching mob. And your great-grandparents, many of them, would have been part of the Ku Klux Klan, would have been white supremacists. Even Donald Trump's father was part of that group. There's a legacy. There's something to be proud of.
Berserker writes, I see racism all around my area, mainly towards Muslims and Middle Eastern people, but it's rarely publicized. Change must happen
I'm so
from the
glad
top.
you said this. I had
They
to
need to
interrupt
wake
you.
up.
This is so
It's
important.
not going away. It's certainly not over. People are not pawns in a nation's chess game. It's never been funny, and it's certainly not funny now.
Exactly. And everybody thinks that everybody who's a member of the Muslim religion, Islam, is a terrorist. This is not true. It's almost like thinking that every single Jew is a rich person. That's what a lot of people think. You know?
We have one that says, I never really understood the kneeling thing. Why is it such a big deal to protest in that manner? It seems a respectful, nonviolent way. It's not a big deal at all. The only difference is it was outside of the box of what was the norm. And instead of, again, respecting someone else's opinion, as long as they're not harming or hurting anyone, why should it be a big deal? I have a very, very dear friend who, very interesting story. We've been friends for a long, long time now. She's like a sister figure to me and vice versa. And we differ politically tremendously. We're on 2 completely different sides of the earth when it comes to politics, when it comes to political views. But I listen to her and what she has to say, and she listens to me and hears what I have to say. And even though we don't really see one another's perspective, we respect. That's the key word. we respect one another. And even if it's something that, she says, and I'm thinking, oh boy, this is going not in the best of directions, there are ways to communicate how one feels. There are ways, and I'm not just talking about politics, I'm not just talking about this event in Minneapolis, I'm not just talking about the arrest of Omar Jimenez, I'm talking about everything. I'm generalizing this to every topic in creation, including many people who don't like the fact that we have a donation goal up, people who stereotype us because we've got a goal up on stream usually every week. People need to understand what the reasons are, listen to what the reasons are that a person does what they do. And if you're able to do that and respond, you don't have to agree, but just respond and respect the person, then, again, we'd be in a much, much better place. You don't have to take their side. It's not a matter of taking sides left, right, Democrat, Republican, independent, Christian, Muslim, atheist, Jewish. It doesn't matter. Black, white, Hispanic, Asian. It doesn't matter. People are people. That's what matters.
Mm-hmm.
Do for one another.
You're right. Wow, it's just so much to be said. I have to sing this next song. I need a break. If you don't mind, everybody, I want to sing Sound of Silence, The Sound of Silence. Appreciate your donation. Thank you. And this song is one of the so many amazing songs that really relate to this topic. It's the musicians, it's the artists who are sensitive people. I would say if you took a poll of the artists, most of them, maybe 90%, would be on the quote liberal side. Maybe more than 90%. We hear about the few who are conservatives. It's really amazing when you think about it. Or if you take a poll about the people who write to me, the most amazing newspaper that's ever existed, because it's the one that I know, not that it is, but to me it is, the New York Times. We're originally from New York. I read other papers in New York, but I could not live without my New York Times because I felt it was there. I was getting the truth by educated people. And then, of course, there's a whole conversation, and once again, the jealousy of people who say, oh, these people in their ivory towers, they think they know everything. You know? It's reality. Reality hurts. Nobody's saying that if you're a farmer, you're not smart. Nobody's saying that if you are a plumber, you're not a brilliant person. We all do what we land up doing.
Before you sing the next song, I'd like to read this comment.
Sure.
Perhaps a weird opinion, but I think many of these problems could be lessened if people talked more openly about mental health issues. Instead of burying everything inside, these police officers must have had some horrible stuff buried inside. Mm-hmm. It's very, very possible. It's also possible that the officers, as Bernie stated, were robotic, and they received a command. Today I'm referring to when Omar Jimenez was arrested. The officers stated that there was a command to have him arrested. So sometimes people don't really think about what it is they do before their actions move forth. They just act as a robot, listen to a command, don't think about the consequences of the command, and just do as they're told. And that's another thing too, that sometime in the future, we really need to talk about this topic. Do as you're told.
Mm-hmm.
As a young child, how many of us were told that? Do as you're told.
Right.
Well,
Don't question. Don't question.
Right. Don't question, don't ask, just accept. No. Nobody has the right to take that away from another person.
Respect your elders, right? Respect your elders.
Sure.
That's it. Yep.
Go ahead, Bernie, sing along.
I want to sing this song, yeah. Oh, there's so many wonderful things we can talk about, and we will. And
I just want to read one more thing.
Please.
Imagine in some place in Poland, close-minded people created something like LGBT free zones. Some people just do not understand that other people can have different opinions and beliefs. We just need freedom and respect for each other.
Mm-hmm.
Your first instinct is to I'm not sure what he means.
Let me see where. Oh, I'm sorry.
Escalate a situation?
Your first instinct is to
De-escalate.
de-escalate.
De-escalate, right, a situation. It seems like they do the opposite. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead, Bernie.
This song means so much to me because it's the silence that destroys the world. People just letting horrible things go by and not doing anything about it. Like, how many times have we seen, even in New York City, we've seen instances of somebody beating somebody up on a train and people scared and they just allow a person to get beat up, or somebody being hurt racially. It happens all the time. Racial hatred is a horror.
Any hatred is a horror.
Any hatred, exactly. The cause of hate.
Mm-hmm.
This is another reason why I'm talking so much about changing the world to make it more comfortable for people. Nobody should feel ever that they are poor. If a person said, well, I'm a poor person, man, I'm poor. I said, wow, that's pretty sick. How can it be you're poor? Well, I don't have money to even go on a vacation. I don't have money to eat what I want to eat. I got to eat my ramen noodles every single night because I can't afford it. This is true. No wonder there's jealousy. And jealousy is one of the reasons. Jealousy and hate are brothers. They're together. Hello, darkness, my old friend. I've come to talk with you again, because a vision softly creeping left its seeds while I was sleeping. And the vision that was planted in my brain still remains within the sound of silence. In restless dreams I walked alone, narrow streets of cobblestones, neath the halo of a street lamp. I turned my collar to the cold and damp when my eyes were stabbed by the flash of a neon lamp that split the night and touched the sound of silence. And in the naked light I saw 10,000 people, maybe more. People talking without speaking. People hearing without listening. People writing songs that voices never share, and no one dared disturb the sound of silence. Fools, said I, you do not know. Silence like a cancer grows. Hear my words that I might teach you. Take my arms that I might reach you. But my words, like silent raindrops, fell and echoed in the wells of silence. And the people bowed and they prayed to the neon god they made. And the sign flashed out its warning in the words that it was forming. And the sign said, the words of the prophets are written on the subway walls and the tenement halls. And whispered in the sounds of silence. To the neon god they made. People make their own gods, don't they? This God is, in this song, the God of what we want to see, what we want to believe in, what we see on the screen, what we see from the light, from the invented light.
Berserker writes, silence is such a key factor, I think. There is an attitude that you should accept what those in power say and go along with it in silence. Mm-hmm. No questions asked.
Brilliant.
Change doesn't happen like that. Voices have to be raised. People have to be ready to shout out when things are not right and hold the people who enforce these issues accountable. No longer should we stay in silence and accept the enforcement of our governments? You write beautifully,
You
Berserker.
sure do. And people who say that the protesters are all looters and all bombers and people who want to start trouble and hurt people and make fires. It's a very, very complicated, that's the best word it took me time to come to the word complicated situation of what goes on, because Martin Luther King would have never condoned looting or starting fires or hurting or burning tires. But it always seems to be that the people who do that kind of destruction are the very uneducated people, the people who are, and we don't want to admit that there are so many mostly younger people who just are lost, like the lost children, who just follow along. They're not the ones who really come up with the ideas. Let's start a protest. Let's really stick up for what's correct. So we have different factions, but they're all together, and it's very, very sad. The only answer is that society has to change. We need a leader who can talk to somebody, who talk to the nation, and who is respected. And if there's no respect from the entire nation, that you have a bright, brilliant, if it's a woman who's president or a man who's president, it doesn't matter, a bright leader. You have to have somebody who everybody says, this is an intelligent person. You can't run a country with a person who is not super intelligent, not just intelligent, but a person with experience. So what if Joe Biden messes up some of his words? So what? We have our American system. We have the House of Representatives and the Senate that control, and we have the Supreme Court. Unfortunately, I still hope to have faith in the Supreme Court, that people will stick to the word of law and not the word of politics. But we have a system that's made to protect our people. And it is certainly, as you see, it is certainly not perfect.
We have a comment. I always believe in simple philosophy. If you can dream it, you can make it a reality. Essentially, the only limits are those that we impose upon ourselves. And that's so true too.
I really
Especially
love this stream
if we
today.
say,
thank you.
We're not willing to make a change. We're not willing to listen to something different. Different is not an easy concept, because change is a challenge. And many times people don't like to be challenged. They get used to a certain routine. They get used to following in the line, not deviating from the line to do something maybe a little bit better, or a little bit more important, or a little bit more beneficial. They're a follower. Followers are not leaders.
And you said something which just triggered something in my mind, Mindy, that people who are afraid to change, are afraid to break away from their religious connection, or the connection of the guilt connection. Oh man, you can't think for yourself. You should be ashamed going against. I want to just bring up one little thing here. I haven't really mentioned it. Somebody at the very beginning of our stream mentioned how the Jews have hurt the Palestinians. There's so much to think about. Now we're talking about people of color now, but everybody has prejudice. And of course, being Jewish, we've had one of the worst prejudices of all times, the Holocaust, the killing of more than 6 million Jews in a very short period of time for one reason. They were Jewish. My ancestors, Mindy's ancestors, and everybody who is Jewish today, only about 15 million Jews in this entire world out of almost 7 billion people. That's a tiny little amount, wanting to just eradicate us. It's really crazy, right? But BDS is a way that is a media kind of thing that makes people say, boycott the country of Israel. Boycott a country, a democratic country? Sure, it's not perfect. Who's to say it's perfect? But to take all the money out and to talk people in not coming there and giving concerts. And this is what I wanted to mention. The Presbyterian Church in the United States of America is pro-BDS. It's part of their bylaws. They have voted to be BDS. I think this is the first time I've ever mentioned this ever in public, and it's always bothered me. So something else to think about. And the United Church of Christ, not all of them, they also are pro-BDS. So there's a lot of prejudice. There's a lot of political kind of stuff going on. And when Hillary Clinton was running for president, they had a picture of her. The Republicans had a picture of her wearing a sheriff's badge, but it really looked like a Jewish star. It was six-pointed. And Donald Trump said, oh no, it's not a Jewish star, it's a sheriff's badge. But it was the subliminal kind of psychology to say, oh, she likes the Jews, you're not going to vote for her. It's baiting Christians against Jews, liberal Jews. Bernie Sanders, liberal, he's a Jew. What a crazy place, right?
We have a comment that says, as far as I know, according to psychology, people are usually afraid of something they don't know, they don't understand. I think that's a big problem. The fear and lack of knowledge are the main reasons of prejudice, hate, and lack of respect. So true. So that we've been doing lots of talk this morning about the government and the responsibilities of the leaders of the country. But we can't also forget there are other entities out there way before a person is even aware that a government or a president exists. And that is of the educational system, the ones to teach young children how to deal with fear, how to deal with challenges, how to accept something is different than what you're accustomed to, and to have a place, to have an environment where a person is able to ask questions without fearing consequences of negativity and harm. Parents, caregivers have to be open to listening to what a child needs to ask. Because where does the child initially learn from? From their caregivers, and so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm. One thing I must mention is the power of freedom of speech and freedom of media through our internet, the way we are connected right now. And you cannot have that on commercial media. We have CNN. I happen to like CNN. However, there are some things about CNN I don't like. Some of the commercials, they bombard you with these commercials. There's supposed to be truth in advertising, and there isn't. You see the little fine prints, and people are trying to scam you right and left in these commercials. But they're gonna, why? I'm gonna tell you in a second why I'm talking about this, because they make, because this is how people make their money for commercials, through advertising. It's all advertising. 99% advertising, maybe more than 99%, maybe 99.9%. And then there's Fox News, which I just, honestly, I can't watch it because it's so fixed. It's like tabloid, and the owner of Fox News and all that started the whole tabloid industry. One of the big leaders, Rupert Murdoch from Australia, and it was all about making money, and they have the same commercials. So these companies that control our sources of media, I don't know how it is where you live, especially if you're in Europe, but if you're in America, it's like you're Republican and you watch Fox News.
I need to read a couple of things here, Bernie. One says, my high school had a subliminal racist religious education curriculum. I remember being told by my teacher, Jews have sex through a hole in a bedsheet. And all of us 12-year-olds laughed and said Jews are weird. Okay. Well,
who said that?
I'm not going to put the person's name because I don't know.
Right.
But I'm going to respond to that. And first of all, I think a lot has to do with, a 12-year-old is still a young person. A 12-year-old probably would think that depending on how that information is expressed and explained, that a 12-year-old would think, hey, that is kind of weird, without knowing the history behind it. And someone else in the stream just wrote, is that really true? I never heard of something like that.
Just take this
I'm going to say that I'm not going to dispute that. I'm sure in today's age, there are people that still do that, okay? There are different customs, different denominations of Jewish people that have different adherences and different customs that they abide by. And it all depends on what level of Judaism one chooses to practice. And some, yes, some do that. I'm not going to give an opinion of that because that's unnecessary. But if that's what works for them and it's not hurting or harming anyone else, so be it. You've got people that are into S&M. You've got people that do all sorts of real weird sexual things, weird in maybe my mind or Bernie's mind, but maybe in your mind it's totally normal. So I think it's the definition of how we define normality. If it's not doing harm to someone else, and if this is how a practice is abided by, again, going back to the issue of respect. You want to beat each other up while having sex? That's your business if you're both consensual. And if these people want to put a sheet between them with a hole and that's consensual, then it's fine. I want to read one more thing. But is it really free speech, as you say? I can write something that makes you ban me, and it was just an opinion of mine. That's how free speech works? Okay. You do have the right to say whatever you want. The same way we have the right to not have it in our stream. We have the right, since this is our stream, to be able to make that determination of what our content will and won't allow. You can say, nobody prevents you from saying what you want to say. We do have words, yes, that are banned because they're not positive, they're not nice, they're not necessary. They don't make the stream what it is, so we don't want them used. That's how that works. This person writes,
okay.
they would show us pictures of different religious people. It was like a spectacle. We were shown pictures of Orthodox Jews with hats, and locks of hair, and we could see how different it was, yes. And the context it was explained in was lacking. Interesting, yeah.
Well, as I said very early in the stream, I said when I taught elementary school, I was shocked in a way. I was surprised that when I told a class of, they may have been like 9-year-old children, that 9, 10-year-old children, I don't remember the age, young children, that I was Jewish, and they said, "You're Jewish? Mr. Katzman, you're Jewish? No, where's your beanie?" You know, like they see Jews and we see, and they
But
said.
again, this is stereotypes.
We live near Jew Park. They called it Jew Park.
Stereotypes of all kinds of people.
People don't know.
You know, I mean, and it's not just people. You know, those of you that are familiar with us know that, you know, we've got our 6 poodles, we've got mom and her 5 kids, and people think, oh my goodness, look at this. Go ahead. Look at this. They've got 6 poodles.
I'll be back.
Poodles are the rich dogs, the rich people's dog. Right. You know, people think we spent, you know, thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars purchasing these poodles. It's a stereotype. Yeah, we had mom, we had dad, and they had 5 kids. That's how we have so many of them. So no matter what the topic is, we all tend to have preconceived notions about things. Prejudice, exactly. And we have to be able just to learn from one another in order to lessen the prejudice. And to the person who wrote what you wrote in the chat about the sheet and the hole and the sex and all of that, I hope I explained it in a way that kind of takes off the connotation of weirdness now to you. Tell me if I did, or if you still kind of have that same feeling. Tell me. And again, guys, if you want me to share your name, again, we're recording this entire stream on our podcast, so that's why I'm refraining from mentioning people's names. I just want to make sure that, you know, you're okay with me saying such and such a person said this. So if you are, you could just write that in the whisper, you could write that in chat, just a matter of me respecting your identity. Come on, don't be quiet now. You'll take some royalties? Okay, admin. Okay, so here we have G-Master. G-Master told us of this story. And I'm interested in knowing what your thoughts about it are now after you received an explanation. Do you still think it's weird? And if you do, that's fine too. We all, to some extent, have some weirdness because there is no perfection here. No one is a perfect person. Perfection just simply doesn't exist. At least not the world that we all live in right now. What's your response to that, G? Uh-huh. I think what you just wrote was a very, very brilliant, brilliant statement. I think it's wrong that a generation as young as mine was programmed to be prejudiced. Yeah. Mm-hmm. You're afraid your souffle is not going to rise, Stolfos? I've never made a souffle, so I can't help you with that one.
And Mindy, you know what I realized? We could cut it in sections to make different podcasts. That you can do one at a time, then the next day you can do the next one. Let people know.
But then the question, G, is, he says, if you have an open mind, then it's easy to see a way out. But many people have closed minds. So that's the first step. How do we open that mind? I think how we open it is having conversations like this and exposing people to hearing what people like Bernie and I have to say.
I'll be back in 1 minute, less than a minute.
And I want all of you, I know we've got a bunch of people. Some of my honeys are out there that are not speaking in chat, so I'm not going to surely mention your name. But we've got some of our regulars with us that are very quiet. And I'd love to know your opinion. Mr. Orbitz, how are you? Berserker says, I don't think people like to leave their comfort zone. Very true. Reaching out to find out what goes on in other cultures does not happen as much, and that's sad. You have to be able to reach out and talk to people, to find out more about people and talk about our differences. Hi, Anom. We're talking about a very, very serious encounter event that's taken place this week in the United States, where a man of color was basically murdered by police officers, and a CNN anchor was arrested today without any reason whatsoever. Right, people don't like to leave their comfort zone. Berserker says, BBC Breaking News has tweeted that one police officer is in connection to the George Floyd case who has just been detained. And they still haven't even pressed charges up until what we're hearing right now. Hi, Al. Hi there. Mm-hmm.
They've been detained now?
One person. I'm not going to read your name unless you give me permission to do so, but I'm just going to read what you just wrote. There are some people I know who are not very open-minded. Do you have any advice on how to initiate a conversation with these people in a helpful way? I think that the first step is to, very diplomatically, very non-threatening. When something bothers us, when something irks us in a conversation, we're very quick, I can surely speak for myself, we're very quick to react. It takes a learned behavior to digest, as I said before, and think about what would be, especially if you know the person well or fairly well, what would be the best approach to talk about this conversation with this person, even by starting out in saying, I know you may not be really comfortable with this, and I'm not all that comfortable talking to you about it, but I'd like to say this. Are you open to listening? Are you open to hearing what I have to say? And if the person says no, then it's a closed conversation. If the person says sure, go for it, there you go. You've at least opened up that door a teeny, 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 tiny niche. And then maybe you could start walking through.
Then you have the people also who believe in this what is it called? Alternate right. This kind of occult kind of way of thinking. and it's very, very hard to get through to them. People who believe, for example, that there's this Illuminati and that some people are controlling the world through the Illuminati, and one of the Illuminati is a very rich Jewish man who gives. Stop it! Stop it! Wait. Hold on a second. Okay, they have to. Mindy went to the bathroom, and they're like, uh-oh, mommy's gone. What's the name of the man I'm trying to think? That's it, G-Master. That's the picture of this Illuminati. And some people believe in this. And it's like people who believe in like tarot cards, you know? I mean, there's a lot of superstition. To me, it's superstition. Now, maybe some of you are a little bit angry at me now because I'm saying that, oh man, what you believe in is superstition. Don't say that, it's real. But extremism of moderate, what's that? George Soros, that's it. You got it, Mr. Orbit. Thank you. And here's a man who has given, this man has made a fortune. This man is a very brilliant